Hare Krishna, Gauranga. Tonight we're going to do another 30 key verses of the Bhagavad-Gita, the last one of chapter 9. This one again is a very famous sloka, and actually is also quoted as one of the last slokas of the Vishnu Sahasranam. So as I said, these Bhagavad-Gita verses are not just contained in the Gita itself. You know, the Lord's words are spoken in different prayers across different, time scales. And when I say time scales, not just 100 years, 1,000 years, we're talking millions of years. These ancient words of the Lord are going right across history. So this Bhagavad-Gita is serious, it's universal, So let's open this one up. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Bhagavad-Gita 9.22. Ananyas chintayanto mam yejana paryupashate tesham nityabhayuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. But those who worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. So I should say, but those who always worship me. Key point there. Purport by the Divine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. One who is unable to live for a moment without Krishna consciousness cannot but think of Krishna 24 hours a day. Being engaged in devotional service by hearing, chanting, remembering, offering prayers, worshipping, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, rendering other services, cultivating friendship and surrendering fully to the Lord. There's one verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it's saying that all the principles of the Vedas surrender to the one principle, that always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So everything in the Vedas points towards that one principle. Smarta vyasatitam Vishnu, Vishmarta vinajatachit, sarve vidi nishesachur, etayor eva kinkaraha. This is 24/7 Krishna consciousness. And we obviously heard in the previous slokas about a Mahatma and their mood of full surrender, never wasting a single second, and never, not simply because they're externally applying themselves in that way, but simply because that is their mood, they're overflowing with love of God. So it's not a case of, by that point in time, there's no longer external endeavour. It's spontaneous devotion to Krishna. And one point here, I had a little bit of look around online, discovered it's nice. It says friendship and surrendering fully. So there's 6 items of surrender, and this comes actually from Rupa Goswami's Upadeshamrita, which we have of course translated by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada into the Nectar of Instruction. And it says the 6 divisions of surrender are the acceptance of those things favourable to devotional service, the rejection of unfavourable things, the conviction that Krishna will give protection, the acceptance of the Lord as one's guardian or master, full self-surrender, and humility. And then it says also at the end of the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita, the Lord Krishna directly orders, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me alone, and offer obeisances unto me alone. This is the mood of surrender at its highest level. And another version of this, because there's a few different quotes from Prabhupada on this surrender, but again it comes from that same thing: accept things favourable for discharging devotional service, reject things unfavourable, always believe firmly in the Lord's protection, feel exclusively dependent on the mercy of the Lord, have no interest separate from the interest of the Lord, and always feel oneself meek and humble. Now these last ones are very important, the humility, because this is the garland which a devotee wears around their neck so they never forget at all times. Shanada pisa ruchena, tarora pisa hushnana, amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. One should be more tall than a tree, more humble than a blade of grass. Yeah? This is the mood. more humble than a straw on the street, which is like the lowest position you can have, and this is the prayer of Lord Chaitanya himself. So the Lord is saying this is the mood that we should have, and in that way you can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Otherwise, not possible. Otherwise, being Krishna conscious, fully surrendered, is not impossible but very difficult, because without that humility, then you won't be able to keep yourself in that devotional platform, at least 24/7 anyway, without any fight, Because again, to come to that spontaneous devotion platform is when all the mind and senses are fully engaged. I was listening to a lecture by my Guru Maharaj, Janananda Goswami, and he was saying that you can't keep fighting the senses, you have to engage the senses. And this is the difference. Japa on the platform of just trying to pull it back, trying to wrestle with it, trying to focus it, but engage them, use them. Get the mind involved in chanting the holy name, Get the mind involved in the devotional service. Otherwise, if you're just trying to pull the mind's running off, you're pulling. The mind's tripping you up, you're falling. The mind's picking you up, you're falling for it. That's just a battle, But engage the mind in chanting. Get the mind into it. Get the mind on board. Make the mind your greatest friend instead of your greatest enemy. Then you can get into the spontaneous Raganuga Bhakti platform. And another thing that comes is, so obviously this is speaking about this Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, which is 9 processes of devotional service. So although it culminates in surrendering fully to the Lord, which is why we explain 6 items of surrender, but a nice little thing is that these 9 processes of devotional service are discussed in the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the chapters about Prahlad Maharaj. We quoted that shloka, and it describes that there is advanced pure devotees who embody that mood. Each process, they perfected one of those items of surrender, and we can have a quick look at them. And of course, this will give a little introduction, so that again I can urge and suggest that you go off and read those chapters and find out more about those personalities, and then we can understand why and how it's so important what they did, so we can take that example. So, hearing Shravanam, Maharaj Parikshit, the last 7 days of his life, he constantly heard the Srimad Bhagavatam. So what more can be said? 7 days and 7 nights, without food, without water, full focus and full surrender to hearing. Chanting, Kirtanam, Shukadeva Goswami, he spoke the Bhagavatam in that same position. Who can sit? We give a class in the temple, on the Vyasasan, and you sit, for 20 minutes, and the speakers, maybe even the speakers thinking, wow, I could do with some prasadam now, Okay, questions. Alright, okay, one question, boom, gone. This is material nature coming in. The body takes over. But Shukadeva Goswami, he came and spoke endlessly. He wasn't saying, okay, don't ask me any questions. He was like, any questions, any more points? Do you need me to speak it again? Krishna spoke the whole Bhagavad-Gita and asked, do you want me to tell you again? That is the nectar of speaking Krishna consciousness. Remembering Vishnu Smaranam, Prahlad Maharaj never forgot Krishna despite constant tortures from his father, Hiranyakashipu. So we know how much difficulty Prahlad Maharaj went through. Unbelievable, agonizing punishments. And again, it's not a story just for the sake of telling. It's not an allegorical example or something like that. It's real. He genuinely was flung off a cliff. He genuinely was put in his boiling. But because of his pure devotion to the Lord, he was unharmed completely. Whereas anyone else would have been gone, Serving the Lord's lotus feet, Padasevanam, Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, is always engaged in serving the lotus feet of the Lord. Dairy worship, Archanam, Maharaj Prithu used all of his royal possessions in order to offer them in pure devotion to the Lord. Praying, Vandanam, Akrura offered prayers to Krishna when he was travelling to Vrindavan in order to see Krishna. So we heard that as he was approaching Vrindavan, he was thinking so much, how fortunate am I that I'm finally going to see my Lord after all this time. I've been waiting to see the lotus feet of Krishna and Balaram, to touch and roll in that dust of Vrindavan where they perform their beautiful, wonderful pastimes with the cowherd boys, and the gopis. Such a great soul must I be, such a devotional service I must have performed to have this opportunity, And then these prayers we can look at in the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto. Execute orders, Dashyam. Hanuman, the intimate servant of Ramachandra, executed all of Sri Ramachandra's orders despite all kinds of difficulties. So we know about the great heroics of Hanuman, considered the great brahmachari, and he, just a simple example was he was asked to try and get a particular herb, and he didn't understand what exactly it was. He couldn't distinguish between all the different herbs and plants and so he brought the whole mountain. He was the only person able and powerful enough to fly across the ocean, and he burned down the whole of Lanka in his battles against Ravana and his soldiers, even at the cost of his own tail, Serving as a friend, Sakyam, Arjuna was so close to Krishna that the Lord offered himself to become his chariot driver and serve Arjuna and his brothers in various ways. Complete surrender, Atmanivedanam. Bali Maharaj gave Sri Vamanadev his entire kingdom, his possessions as well as his own body, although his own spiritual master was against it. And it's interesting that one kind of pastime came that's in the background to this whole story, is that Bali Maharaj's wife, he said, "You're such a fool. You actually think that you've surrendered. You have nothing to surrender. It's not yours anyway. The Lord is just giving you that mercy by externally taking everything off you. Who are you to think that you've actually surrendered something, You don't really understand the devotional service mentality." And he'd actually given everything, and still he was bound with ropes and made to look, in such a position. So that was that full surrender. He said, "Place your final step on my head," Such activities are all auspicious and full of spiritual potencies, which make the devotee perfect in self-realization, so that his only desire is to achieve the association with the Supreme Person of Godhead. Such a devotee undoubtedly approaches the Lord without difficulty. This is called yoga. By the mercy of the Lord, such a devotee never comes back to this material condition of life. Kshema refers to the material protection of the Lord. The Lord helps a devotee to achieve Krishna consciousness by yoga, and when he becomes fully Krishna conscious, the Lord protects him from falling down to a miserable conditioned life. The last point I can share on this is one story I heard about this shloka is that, more a point than a story, is that we don't really, in one sense, deserve the mercy. Now that sounds like a very kind of shocking point. How do we not deserve it? Because our rightful claim, our only entitlement is devotional service. Our only thing that is truly ours is that relationship with us and Krishna. But by our material contamination, in many ways, we have, in one sense, really burned our eligibility, our bridges in minute, because we've completely been engaging so heavily in sense gratification that we've turned our back on Krishna. He's never turned our back on us. He's constantly waiting for us to look back and say, okay, now I want to see you, Krishna. And then he just throws everything at us. He provides us full opportunity, so much mercy. He gives us so much situations he keeps on putting in front of us to go, oh, Krishna's there, oh, Vishnu's there, oh, Narayan's there, oh, that shloka that I remember, oh, that book that I read. He's presenting options left, right and centre. And even sometimes, despite all that, we're still tripping over and going, oh, I saw those Hare Krishnas, anyway, forget it. Oh, someone was singing that song, Hari, 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 anyway, forget it, Oh, that prasadam that I ate, oh, was that prasadam? Oh, that food from those, oh yeah, okay, anyway, forget it. We're just constantly batting it off till one point, till one day it just sticks again, So, but the Lord, He gives that mercy to us, and He's, He's carrying what we lack, which means due to some, material disqualification from our conditioning, from our desires and so on and so forth, He's actually willing to give us something that wouldn't be ours anyway, So we've not got it, we lack in it, so we don't have it, but He's willing to give it to us. And the other point is, He's carrying what we do have, which means by having it, we've got it. We've either used it up or we've used the potencies of it or whatever, and that's also going to disappear. And He's letting us keep it, right? This is the mercy of the Lord. He's letting us keep our spiritual and material benefits. He's giving us ones that we don't have, out of His causeless mercy to help us in this yoga system. That is the result of 24 hours full surrender to the Supreme Person of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.